The Rose Bargain is a 2025 young adult alternate history romantasy novel by Sasha Peyton Smith, author of The Witch Haven. Fun fact, I read this as an ARC, which stands for Advanced Reader Copy. I recorded this prior to the book's release. I have not read the final copy of the book, and so if you pick it up and find that anything I've mentioned here differs from what you've read, which really shouldn't be anything because I'm not going to go into any excruciating detail, that's probably why. So yeah, I wanted to shout out this book because as far as young adult fantasy romance is concerned, this one was pretty good. The summary reads as follows. Every citizen of England is granted one bargain from their immortal Fey Queen. High society girls are expected to bargain for qualities that will win them suitors. A rare talent for piano in exchange for one's happiest childhood memory. A perfect smile for one's ability to taste. But Ivy Benton's debut season arrives with a shocking twist. A competition to secure the heart of the Queen's Fey son, Prince Bram. A prize that could save Ivy's family from ruin, and free her sister from the bargain that destroyed her. Yet every glittering Fey deal has a rotting heart, and at the center of this contest is a dark plot that could destroy everything Ivy knows. I'm not going to recap the plot of this book the way I usually do, since it isn't released yet and I don't want to take the wind out of its sails by spreading the major plot points and twists. I will, however, give a little more background on the story to pique your interest. So the basic plot of the story is that Queen Morian of the Fae made a deal with King Edward IV during the War of the Roses. For those unaware, the Wars of the Roses were a series of civil wars fought in England in the 15th century between the Lancasters and the Yorks. Long story short, these conflicts ultimately led to the House of Tudor taking the throne. Except Queen Morian pulls some bullshit and ends up on the throne herself. Afterwards, she declares that her subjects get to make one bargain with her in their lifetimes. The bargains themselves are pretty interesting. Sometimes she asks for a toe or a finger in exchange for a pretty face, and sometimes she takes your childhood memories in exchange for a plot of land. I thought the author really got creative with the bargains, and it added to some of the mystery in the book since you don't always know what a particular character traded or what they got from it. The writing in the book actually impressed me. I don't know. I tend to have a lower bar for YA in some respects because of the age groups that it targets, but I thought that this book did a much better job at showing rather than telling, and developing the plot and its mystery very effective. The author wove in the details about Queen Morian and her effect on this alternate England very smoothly and naturally, rather than just dumping it on us at every opportunity. As far as leads go, Ivy is pretty good. She's got a rebellious streak to her, but I like the fact that it wasn't stupid rebellious, if you know what I mean. In YA books, sometimes the authors are so obsessed with creating a girl boss character that always speaks her mind, and by that I mean she opens her big stupid mouth and says big stupid shit that should end with serious consequences, but the author doesn't want that. And so basically the villains and or opposition end up sabotaged by the author because much like The Rock, the girl boss is never allowed to lose or have any negative consequences for being a loud, proud badass, even when it would be realistic. That was a tangent. Anyway, my point is that Ivy is not like that. She's smart and a little sassy, but she's not stupid. And Queen Morian's power and malice is not undermined by the author so that Ivy can have her #girlboss moments. The other competitors were okay. Some developed as characters better than others. The love interests were believable. I got why Ivy wanted to be into them. I don't always get that with some of these books. Aside from Ivy, I would say that Queen Morian was definitely one of the most interesting parts of this book. I was very, very eager to see how things were going to play out with her. The romance was okay, a little predictable, but I'm also not a big romance person, so I might be underselling it. It's a love triangle, which I know some people won't love, between Prince Emmett, which is Morian's stepson, and Prince Bram, Morian's biological son, the one the girls are all competing for. If you're familiar with the tropes of the romantasy genre, or just young adult in general, you might just figure out who it is that Ivy's really destined for by the end of the book, but even if you do, it's a hell of a ride to get there, so hang in there. There are a few ongoing mysteries in this book surrounding Ivy's sister, Queen Morian, the princes, and Ivy's fellow contestants, and they were all fairly intriguing and carried off pretty well. The fantasy element is obviously present. Queen Morian is a fairy, the Fae, and so consequently she's ruling over 1840s England. You've got the historical fiction aspect mixed with the fantasy, but magic is a big part of the plot here. Without going into spoilers, the book ends on a cliffhanger that strongly suggests that the fantasy elements will be even stronger in the sequel than it was in the first one. If I had to draw a comparison, Rose Bargain is A bit like The Selection meets the Under the Mountain portion of A Court of Thorns and Roses, romantic competition featuring a villainess subjecting the heroine to increasingly batshit challenges. There's also an element to the book that mirrors Red Queen, but I won't hint at which part. You'll have to read that and find out for yourself. So yeah, I recommend checking this one out. It's supposed to come out, I believe, on February 5th. Pretty good fantasy romance book, and it hooked me enough that I'm very eager for the sequel.